Day 301, Saturday, December 2nd. 2 Samuel 5, 1 Chronicles 11 1-19, 1 Chronicles 12 23-40, 1 Chronicles 14 1-17 and 2 Samuel 23 8-17. 2 Samuel 5 1-25 NKJV. Then all the tribes of Israel came to David at Hebron and spoke, saying, Indeed we are your bone and your flesh. Also, in time past, when Saul was king over us, you were the one who led Israel out and brought them in. And the Lord said to you, You shall shepherd my people Israel, and be ruler over Israel. Therefore all the elders of Israel came to the king at Hebron, and King David made a covenant with them at Hebron before the Lord, and they anointed David king over Israel. David was 30 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 40 years. In Hebron he reigned over Judah 7 years and 6 months, and in Jerusalem he reigned 33 years over all Israel and Judah. And the king and his men went to Jerusalem against the Jebusites, the inhabitants of the land, who spoke to David, saying, You shall not come in here, but the blind and the lame will repel you, thinking, David cannot come in here. Nevertheless David took the stronghold of Zion, that is, the city of David. Now David said on that day, Whoever climbs up by way of the water shaft and defeats the Jebusites, the lame and the blind, who are hated by David's soul, he shall be chief and captain. Therefore they say, The blind and the lame shall not come into the house. Then David dwelt in the stronghold, and called it the city of David. And David built all around from the Millo and inward. So David went on and became great, and the Lord God of hosts was with him. Then Hiram king of Tyre sent messengers to David, and cedar trees, and carpenters and masons. And they built David a house. So David knew that the Lord had established him as king over Israel, and that he had exalted his kingdom for the sake of his people Israel. And David took more concubines and wives from Jerusalem, after he had come from Hebron. Also more sons and daughters were born to David. Now these are the names of those who were born to him in Jerusalem: Shammua, Shobab, Nathan, Solomon, Ivor, Elishua, Nepheg, Yiphiah, Elishama, Eliada, and Eliphalet. Now when the Philistines heard that they had anointed David king over Israel, all the Philistines went up to search for David. And David heard of it and went down to the stronghold. The Philistines also went and deployed themselves in the valley of Rephaim. So David inquired of the Lord, saying, Shall I go up against the Philistines? Will you deliver them into my hand? And the Lord said to David, Go up, for I will doubtless deliver the Philistines into your hand. So David went to Baal-perazim, and David defeated them there. And he said, The Lord has broken through my enemies before me, like a breakthrough of water. Therefore he called the name of that place Baal-perazim. And they left their images there, and David and his men carried them away. Then the Philistines went up once again and deployed themselves in the valley of Rephaim. Therefore David inquired of the Lord, and he said, You shall not go up, circle around behind them, and come upon them in front of the mulberry trees. And it shall be, when you hear the sound of marching in the tops of the mulberry trees, then you shall advance quickly. For then the Lord will go out before you to strike the camp of the Philistines. And David did so, as the Lord commanded him, and he drove back the Philistines from Geba as far as Gezer. Daily Deep Dive. The UCG reading program states, After years of civil unrest, all of Israel is finally ready to accept David as king. As all of the tribes agree, we are your bone and your flesh. This basically means, we are your relatives. Centuries earlier, Laban said the same thing to his nephew Jacob, Genesis 29:14, and Gideon's son Abimelech said it to his mother's family, Judges 9:1-2. But, if people would really think about it, that goes beyond our immediate next of kin. Or, At least, it should. No matter what color or nationality, we are all human beings, created in the image of God. Genesis 1:26-27. No matter what race we belong to today, our roots all trace back to Noah, and back to our ancestral parents, Adam and Eve, the mother of all living. 3:20. Indeed, God has made from one blood every nation of men to dwell on all the face of the earth. Acts 17:26. Thus, we are all blood relatives. We are all one family. But men have always found reasons to fight each other, whether geographically, economically, or racially motivated. From the beginning, man has always found reasons, however unjustified, to kill his brother. Compare Genesis 4:1-15. Back to the story of David's kingdom. The Israelites are now ready for unity and peace among each other after years of killing. From the account in 1 Chronicles 12, we can see the numbers of troops from each tribe who come to Hebron to declare loyalty to David. Commentaries disagree on whether the actual troops assembled or only their commanders. If the troops actually presented themselves, their numbers approached 350,000. Regardless of whether the full battle-hardened army amassed before David, their unanimous support for David's kingship is dramatically conveyed. After years of strife, troops that were fighting and killing each other are now celebrating this momentous event with food and drink being brought in by the neighboring tribes. For a time, there is truly joy in Israel. David reigned for 7.5 years from Hebron as king over Judah. It is now time to reign for the next 33 years from the city of peace, Jerusalem. Interestingly, it should be remembered that Israel was actually divided into two kingdoms, Israel and Judah, when Ishbosheth was proclaimed king over Israel and David was made king of Judah. But a distinction between Israel and Judah existed even in Saul's day. Compare 1 Samuel 11:8, 1 Samuel 17:52, 1 Samuel 18:16. Perhaps it goes all the way back to the initial conquest of the land under Joshua, when the south went to Judah and the lands of the northern conquest went to the other tribes. Following Ishbosheth, even when David replaces him as king of Israel, there are still two distinct kingdoms, albeit with both under the same king. David is now king of Israel and king of Judah, a distinction maintained during his reign. Indeed, much later in David's reign, we find a military census reporting, "Then Joab gave the sum of the number of the people to the king. There were in Israel 800,000 men who drew the sword, and the men of Judah were 500,000 men." 2 Samuel 24:9. The creation of this united monarchy is very similar to what happened in Britain. When King James VI of Scotland became King James I of England, he was still King of Scotland. Indeed, he became King James I of the United Kingdom of Great Britain. Israel's two kingdoms under one ruler will continue through Solomon's reign, with Judah and Israel still being mentioned under him as distinct nations. 1 Kings 4:20-25. The divided monarchy will re-emerge when Israel proclaims a non-Davidic ruler after Solomon's death. Judah will continue to be ruled by the line of David. Ironically, though, the tribe of Benjamin, instead of leading the kingdom of Israel as in the days of Ishbosheth, will, in the later split, become part of the kingdom of Judah. We will explore this in more detail when we come to it in our reading. At the time of David's siege, Jerusalem is called Jebus, which, interestingly, means trodden underfoot. New Open Bible, Topical Index, Thomas Nelson Publishers, 1990. Upon Israel's entrance into the Promised Land, it was allotted to the tribes of Judah and Benjamin. But these tribes only briefly defeated the Canaanite inhabitants of Jebus, Judges 1:8, for the Jebusites were soon back in their fortress city, see Judges 19:10-12. The city itself was strategically located in the hill country near the border of Judah and Benjamin, making it a foreign wedge between the northern and southern tribes. Nelson Study Bible, note on 2 Samuel 5:69. Jerusalem was originally a fortress built on a high hill between two valleys that converged in a V formation. The steep sides of the hill, combined with the city's walls, made it seemingly impossible to penetrate. The Jebusites are so confident in the safety of their walls that they mock David, possibly placing the blind and lame in positions that are in full view of the Israelite troops. But considering what is written concerning the skill, wisdom and bravery of the men who are now united under David's leadership, it is not so surprising that Jerusalem is conquered. David challenges his men to enter the city by way of the water shaft. Verse 8. This shaft extended about 230 feet up from the Gihon spring to the top of the hill where the Jebusite fortress was situated. 2 Chronicles 32:30. The tunnel gave the city a secure water supply in the event of a siege. Note on verse 8. The account in Chronicles reveals that it is Joab who runs with David's challenge and leads the first invasion of the city, earning him the position of captain over all of Israel's army. David then makes this fortress city of such great strategic value his own new capital, calling it the City of David. David also exercised considerable diplomatic wisdom here. Rather than choosing as his capital a city held by one of the 12 tribes of Israel, or one of the two kingdoms, and thus being perceived as favoring that one, David chose a city that belonged to none of the tribes and was thus viewed as neutral. In similar manner, the government of the United States early on placed its national capital, Washington, in the District of Columbia, a territory bordering two states but that did not belong to any state, so as not to be seen as favoring one state over another. Continuing, we then read about the mighty men of David. An elite group of 3 of these warriors is listed first with their individual claims to fame. As we will see in our next reading, another elite group of 3 is also mentioned, which includes Joab. However, this other trio, we are told, does not compare with the first 3, 1 Chronicles 11:20-21, and neither does another group, verses 22-25. One member of the first group is not mentioned by name in 1 Chronicles 11, but his name is given in 2 Samuel 23 as Shammah the son of Agi the Hararite, verse 11. Another is mentioned in both passages as Eleazar the son of Dodo, the Ahite, 1 Chronicles 11:12, 2 Samuel 23:9. The other, mentioned first, is listed in 1 Chronicles 11 as Jashobeam the son of a Hachmonite, verse 11, and in 2 Samuel 23 as Joshab-Basebeth the Tachmonite, verse 8. This name is probably a play on the words of his real name. For Tachmonite denotes wise, New Open Bible, topical index, and Joshab-Basebeth, which sounds similar to Jashobeam, literally means one who sits in the seat. Nelson Study Bible, margin. This could denote his exalted position as chief of the captains, 1 Chronicles 11:11, in exploits, not rank, as Joab was chief over the others in authority, verse 6. Another apparent discrepancy is that 1 Chronicles 11:11 says Jashobeam killed 300 men at one time while 2 Samuel 23:8 says he killed 800 at one time. Yet, while it is uncertain just how to reconcile these verses, that does not make them irreconcilable. One possibility is that a particular military engagement went on for a few days with 300 killed in one day and 500 others killed on the other days. Another possibility is that these were 2 separate occasions, and that he was known for both. We also see here the amazing account of the obtaining of water from the well of Bethlehem. It is not entirely clear whether this was done by the group of 3 just mentioned or another unnamed group of 3. Since individuals are named throughout the account, and since 2 Samuel 23:17 says these things, rather than just the one act of getting the drink, were done by the 3 mighty men, and since the named individuals in verses 8 to 39 add up to the total of 37 in verse 39, it is most likely that the three who got the water are the same men first listed, Jashobeam, Eleazar, and Shammah. Regardless, these scriptures show us the strength and loyalty of the men who served under David. These three were willing to give their lives just to get David, their commander-in-chief, a drink of water. But David refuses to drink it, calling it blood because it was brought to him at tremendous risk of life, and he pours it out an offering to God. Verses 16 to 17. Ordinarily, wine was used for a drink offering. Lev. 23:13, 18, 37. Here, water more costly than the finest wine was poured in celebration before the Lord. Nelson Study Bible. Note on verse 16. This is an outstanding example of godly leadership. Such respect for his men and such personal humility must have inspired even greater loyalty. And, verse 4, David was the same age as his antitype Christ when he began his public ministry. Compare Luke 3:23. Verse 7, the JFB commentary states, whether Zion be the southwestern hill commonly so called, or the peak now level on the north of the Temple Mount, it is the towering height which catches the eye from every quarter, the hill fort, the rocky hold of Jerusalem. As we move through the Bible, it's worth understanding that Zion, city of David, Jerusalem, Salem, Mount Moriah, Jebus, Ariel, the holy city, holy mountain, city of the great king, will all be used interchangeably for Jerusalem. There may be others, but these are the ones that came to mind. Verse 11, John Gill's commentary states, this was father of that Hiram that lived in the times of Solomon, whose name was Abibalus before he took the name of Hiram, which became a common name of the kings of Tyre. His former name may be seen in the ancient historians quoted by Josephus, of the city of Tyre. Verse 13, while I wish God would have made a direct statement against David for having multiple wives, the scripture is nonetheless clear in Deuteronomy 17:17, which says that kings of Israel should not multiply wives. Verse 20, Baal Perazim means possessor of breaches or lord of the breaks. Verse 25, notice how God sought God's direction and God blessed him for it. Read 1 Chronicles 11:1-19, 1 Chronicles 12:23-40, 1 Chronicles 14:1, 17 and 2 Samuel 23:8-17. 1 Chronicles 11:1-19 NKJV. Then all Israel came together to David at Hebron, saying, indeed we are your bone and your flesh. Also, in time past, even when Saul was king, you were the one who led Israel out and brought them in. And the Lord your God said to you, you shall shepherd my people Israel, and be ruler over my people Israel. Therefore all the elders of Israel came to the king at Hebron, and David made a covenant with them at Hebron before the Lord. And they anointed David king over Israel, according to the word of the Lord by Samuel. And David and all Israel went to Jerusalem, which is Jebus, where the Jebusites were, the inhabitants of the land. But the inhabitants of Jebus said to David, you shall not come in here. Nevertheless David took the stronghold of Zion, that is, the city of David. Now David said, whoever attacks the Jebusites first shall be chief and captain. And Joab the son of Zeruiah went up first, and became chief. Then David dwelt in the stronghold. Therefore they called it the city of David. And he built the city around it, from the Millo to the surrounding area. Joab repaired the rest of the city. So David went on and became great, and the Lord of hosts was with him. Now these were the heads of the mighty men whom David had, who strengthened themselves with him in his kingdom, with all Israel, to make him king, according to the word of the Lord concerning Israel. And this is the number of the mighty men whom David had. Jashobeam the son of a Hachmonite, chief of the captains. He had lifted up his spear against 300, killed by him at one time. After him was Eleazar the son of Dodo, the Ahite, who was one of the 3 mighty men. He was with David at Pasdammim. Now there the Philistines were gathered for battle, and there was a piece of ground full of barley. So the people fled from the Philistines, but they stationed themselves in the middle of that field, defended it, and killed the Philistines. So the Lord brought about a great victory. Now 3 of the 30 chief men went down to the rock to David, into the cave of Adullam, and the army of the Philistines encamped in the valley of Rephaim. David was then in the stronghold, and the garrison of the Philistines was then in Bethlehem. And David said with longing, "Oh, that someone would give me a drink of water from the well of Bethlehem, which is by the gate." So the 3 broke through the camp of the Philistines, drew water from the well of Bethlehem that was by the gate, and took it and brought it to David. Nevertheless David would not drink it, but poured it out to the Lord. And he said, "Far be it from me, O my God, that I should do this. Shall I drink the blood of these men who have put their lives in jeopardy? For at the risk of their lives they brought it." Therefore he would not drink it. These things were done by the 3 mighty men. 1 Chronicles 12:23-40 NKJV. Now these were the numbers of the divisions that were equipped for war, and came to David at Hebron to turn over the kingdom of Saul to him, according to the word of the Lord. Of the sons of Judah bearing shield and spear, 6,800 armed for war. Of the sons of Simeon, mighty men of valor fit for war, 7,100. Of the sons of Levi 4,600. Jehoiada, the leader of the Aaronites, and with him 3,700. Zadok, a young man, a valiant warrior, and from his father's house 22 captains. Of the sons of Benjamin, relatives of Saul, 3,000. Until then the greatest part of them had remained loyal to the house of Saul. Of the sons of Ephraim 20,800, mighty men of valor, famous men throughout their father's house. Of the half-tribe of Manasseh 18,000, who were designated by name to come and make David king. Of the sons of Issachar who had understanding of the times, to know what Israel ought to do, their chiefs were 200. And all their brethren were at their command. Of Zebulun there were 50,000 who went out to battle, expert in war with all weapons of war, stout-hearted men who could keep ranks. Of Naphtali 1,000 captains, and with them 37,000 with shield and spear. Of the Danites who could keep battle formation, 28,600. Of Asher, those who could go out to war, able to keep battle formation, 40,000. Of the Reubenites and the Gadites and the half-tribe of Manasseh, from the other side of the Jordan, 120,000 armed for battle with every kind of weapon of war. All these men of war, who could keep ranks, came to Hebron with a loyal heart, to make David king over all Israel. And all the rest of Israel were of one mind to make David king. And they were there with David 3 days, eating and drinking, for their brethren had prepared for them. Moreover those who were near to them, from as far away as Issachar and Zebulun and Naphtali, were bringing food on donkeys and camels, on mules and oxen, provisions of flour and cakes of figs and cakes of raisins, wine and oil and oxen and sheep abundantly, for there was joy in Israel. 1 Chronicles 14:1. 17 NKJV. Now Hiram king of Tyre sent messengers to David, and cedar trees, with masons and carpenters, to build him a house. So David knew that the Lord had established him as king over Israel, for his kingdom was highly exalted for the sake of his people Israel. Then David took more wives in Jerusalem, and David begot more sons and daughters. And these are the names of his children whom he had in Jerusalem: Shammua, Shobab, Nathan, Solomon, Ivor, Elishua, Elplet, Noga, Nepheg, Yephiah, Elishama, Beelida, and Eliphalet. Now when the Philistines heard that David had been anointed king over all Israel, all the Philistines went up to search for David. And David heard of it and went out against them. Then the Philistines went and made a raid on the valley of Rephaim. And David inquired of God, saying, Shall I go up against the Philistines? Will you deliver them into my hand? The Lord said to him, Go up, for I will deliver them into your hand. So they went up to Baal-perazim, and David defeated them there. Then David said, God has broken through my enemies by my hand like a breakthrough of water. Therefore they called the name of that place Baal-perazim. And when they left their gods there, David gave a commandment, and they were burned with fire. Then the Philistines once again made a raid on the valley. Therefore David inquired again of God, and God said to him, You shall not go up after them, circle around them, and come upon them in front of the mulberry trees. And it shall be, when you hear a sound of marching in the tops of the mulberry trees, then you shall go out to battle, for God has gone out before you to strike the camp of the Philistines. So David did as God commanded him, and they drove back the army of the Philistines from Gibeon as far as Gezer. Then the fame of David went out into all lands, and the Lord brought the fear of him upon all nations. 2 Samuel 23:8-17 NKJV. These are the names of the mighty men whom David had. Joshab-Basshebeth the Tachmonite, chief among the captains. He was called Adino the Eznite, because he had killed 800 men at one time. And after him was Eleazar the son of Dodo, the Ahite, one of the 3 mighty men with David when they defied the Philistines who were gathered there for battle, and the men of Israel had retreated. He arose and attacked the Philistines until his hand was weary, and his hand stuck to the sword. The Lord brought about a great victory that day, and the people returned after him only to plunder. And after him was Shammah the son of Agi the Hararite. The Philistines had gathered together into a troop where there was a piece of ground full of lentils. So the people fled from the Philistines. But he stationed himself in the middle of the field, defended it, and killed the Philistines. So the Lord brought about a great victory. Then 3 of the 30 chief men went down at harvest time and came to David at the cave of Adullam. And the troop of Philistines encamped in the valley of Rephaim. David was then in the stronghold, and the garrison of the Philistines was then in Bethlehem. And David said with longing, Oh, that someone would give me a drink of the water from the well of Bethlehem, which is by the gate. So the 3 mighty men broke through the camp of the Philistines, drew water from the well of Bethlehem that was by the gate, and took it and brought it to David. Nevertheless he would not drink it, but poured it out to the Lord. And he said, Far be it from me, O Lord, that I should do this. Is this not the blood of the men who went in jeopardy of their lives? Therefore he would not drink it. These things were done by the 3 mighty men.